Good morning. This is Faith in Our Hometown, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin. And now, here is your host, Father Jay Friedel.
Good morning and welcome to another Sunday morning in Faith in Our Hometown. I'm always amazed that people are up in the morning and listen at 6:30 or at 9 a.m. I'm usually, of course, in church around those times too, but I will just say it is always good to spend a little bit of Sunday morning with each of you. We thank you for tuning in. Many of our shows talk about how we help each other as people of faith here in the greater Joplin area. What do we do to assist each other in making our way through life? Because that's an expression of faith for all of us that live here in our hometown. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about what we do to help especially folks who might have been traumatized at some point in their lives, and especially some of our veterans who basically need a little bit of assist to help kind of get them over the hump of some of the trauma that they've endured in life because of their service to us. There's a special organization here called Heartland Canines for Veterans, and we're going to be talking a little bit about them, about the work that they do. So we're going to be right back after this Mercy Minute. Stick with us. We've got a great show for you this morning.
Once I quit playing football, I still kept up with the eating, the amount of calories I wasn't exercising, so the weight started adding on. Dr. Lou is very knowledgeable in the work he does. He also has a program set up that has support systems in place for you. You'll go through the seminar at first. He'll give you the different examples of surgeries you can have to see which one works best with you. He will also sit down with you and discuss the options, what he feels, but he'll work with you the entire time. Mercy has their gastric bypass program here. They have all kinds of resources and support systems in place. They want to see you succeed, and they're here to help you the entire time, even after the surgery.
Well, again, thanks for joining us this Sunday morning. My guest this morning is Rob Wise, who's the Executive Director of Heartland Canines for Veterans. So, Rob, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then tell us a little bit about what Heartland Canine for Veterans does.
Well, about myself, I am a Joplin native. I was born and raised here, graduated high school here. I left the nest at 18 to join the military, where I spent the next 20 years. And once I retired, I felt the pull of home. You know, the pull of home is pretty strong. You want to come home, be with your family and your friends. So we came back here in July of 2014, and just a couple of months ago, I was approached by the board of Heartland Canines for Veterans. They were looking for a new executive director, and I seemed to fit.
There you go. So what does Heartland Canines for Veterans do?
Well, in a nutshell, what we do is we professionally source, train, care for, and then provide service dogs to veterans that are suffering from mobility issues, post-traumatic stress, anxiety, depression, a couple other different things.
Okay, so how do these dogs help in those situations? What happens here?
Well, studies have shown that dogs in particular have great empathic connections with us. They feel what we're feeling, and they are truly man's best friend. And the presence of a service dog to a veteran that has been or is suffering from anxiety or depression or post-traumatic stress, mobility issues, it can allow them to experience a lifestyle that they may have missed, or that they may be living with a new normal now because of the illness or the injury that has been inflicted upon them. So these service dogs can definitely help them regain some of the balance in their life.
Yeah, so in other words, instead of not being able to, for example, go out in public, and kind of removing themselves from society, the animals help them to actually get out into society and function, in a much more successful way than they might if the dogs weren't there.
That's absolutely true. One of the symptoms of post-traumatic stress is a feeling of isolation, a feeling of being all alone. Sometimes people that are suffering from PTSD can be what we call hypervigilant. And they are on guard at all times, worrying about what's going on behind them, to their left, to their right, to their front. And because of that, also because of that feeling of isolation, they can feel that they're all alone. And a service dog is just their buddy. Those dogs can be trained to watch in front of their handler, to the left, to the right, to watch behind their handler. What we call it checking their 6 o'clock position, and just be there as an extra set of eyes and ears from somebody that is suffering from that hypervigilance.
Okay, so in other words, what's the dog's job then? Is to just kind of let the person know that there's somebody coming up behind them?
Well, it's all about touch and presence.
Okay.
Typically, if a dog was standing next to you and they're given different commands as to where they're going to be positioned in relation to the handler's body, if they're going to be in front of, behind, or to the side. And there's usually that very small touch, maybe they're leaning against their leg, or their tail's hitting their foot, something like that. Just some kind of sensory touch that lets them know that somebody is watching behind them.
Wow. So that's a great example of what a dog would do. So how does that help in terms of, say for example, I'm thinking of our viewers. I've never seen any of your presentations or anything. How would a dog help with anxiety? How would that help?
Well, mostly what they do is the dog is there as support more than anything else.
Okay.
Anxiety comes in many different forms.
Exactly.
It can hit someone that is suffering from it at any time. And many times the person that is suffering from anxiety, they're in a place where they're unfamiliar, they're unaware, they could be alone, they could be surrounded by strangers. And that dog is just a fallback, a place of safety for them, that they can say, okay, I might be feeling nervous right now, but it's okay because I've got my buddy with me.
Yeah, just sometimes that connection, that touch,
Absolutely
does all that, and so that gets them out, and still, even though it kind of in some ways helps the people who have the dogs to overcome some of those fears and can still get out there and kind of be out in the world with the rest of us.
Yeah, some of the stresses that they've encountered in their life can tend to make them withdraw into themselves. And it's kind of a vicious cycle, because the more that withdrawn they become, the harder it is to break someone that is suffering from those illnesses out of that cycle. And that's what a dog can help do. It's not a fix-all, it's not a cure-all, but it can definitely help.
Sure. I've sometimes heard criticisms, and you'll hear all kinds of, stories in the news and all that kind of good stuff. About, well, what's really a service animal and what's not a service animal, and everybody understands it in terms of the quote, seeing eye dog. But I don't think a lot of people really understand it in terms of, what these kind of service animals can do. So how do you train dogs? How do you find the dogs to train? How do you do all that stuff? How does this stuff work?
Well, first of all, the definition of a service dog is a dog that has been specifically trained to perform a task for an individual person. Now, it doesn't matter what that task is. If you had a service dog and we could specifically train it to bring you your pen or to bring you your coffee in the morning, it's considered a service dog because they are trained to perform a task for you, for an individual. And dogs they're kind of just like people. Some of them have a higher level of intelligence. Not to put too fine a point on it, but there are smart dogs and there are not so smart dogs.
And that happens in the human variety too.
As much as I hate to say it, yeah.
Okay.
But we do have a procurement process. We source our dogs through professional breeders from the Missouri Pet Breeders Association.
Okay.
And we've used a number of different breeds. The breed is not necessarily the deciding factor. It's the lifespan, the projected lifespan of the animal, obviously their intelligence, and then the way that they interact with their handler, just that relationship that a person and a dog form, that is probably one of the key factors in deciding who gets paired with what dog. And it is as complicated as trying to find new friends.
Yeah. Good way to put it.
Yeah.
Good way to put it. Because, I mean, yeah, we know that sometimes it doesn't work out, People just don't hit it off or do whatever. And I'm sure that's the same way it is with, service animals.
Dogs have personalities just like we do. And sometimes, through no fault of their own or no fault of the handler, they have personality conflicts. And that personality conflict may show in the beginning of the training cycle. It may show in the middle of the training cycle. It may show in the end of the training cycle. But our trainers are very well, they're keyed into noticing those changes in the behavior in the dog and the person, and recognizing that, hey, during this cycle, this dog might not be a great fit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, you get them through the Breeders Association and those kinds of things, and then you try to make the fits. Okay. Yeah. How many dogs, just out of curiosity, how long has the organization been in existence, and how long and how many have you placed? How many animals have you placed so far?
Well, we started in 2014. It began as a lot of great ideas do, just in the mind of a couple of different people saying, hey, we should really do this because of the benefit it can bring our community. And over the years, I think they started in 2014. Over the years, I don't have this exact numbers on how many dogs they've placed
close.
from. Yeah. There's probably, over the last 3 years, maybe 14, 15 dogs that have been placed with qualified and deserving veterans. Quite a few of them are in Joplin. Mm-hmm. If you go to Spiva Arts Center, there's a young gentleman that works there. His name is Aaron Skapik, and he has a service dog named Irie. She's a Siberian Husky, and we helped them get together.
Oh, there you go. They made a friendship.
They did, and the change in Aaron is quantifiable. It's you can see it in his eyes. You can see it in the way that he goes about his daily business. He's one of those people that the service dog has really changed his life for the better.
Yeah. And it's great, and I'm sure he doesn't mind you talking about it either.
I hope not.
Yes. In terms of those kinds of things, I mean, it's great to see those success stories and to be able to do those things, which is, I mean, it's one of the heartwarming things about what you all do. So how many people are involved in your organization, and like, say, how many trainers do you have and all that kind of good stuff?
Well, we have a single trainer right now. His name is Tim Franks. He works out at On Command Canine Training Center on North Main in Joplin. And the board is comprised of another 4 or 5 people. We've got a president, a treasurer, a secretary,
sure.
just like you need
and
to.
A nonprofit, sure, yeah.
But everybody there is single-minded, of a single purpose, to make the veteran's life better because of the line of work that they find themselves in. For example, our president works at a facility named Pinnacle Pet out of Neosho, and they're responsible for transportation of puppies, finding forever homes, and transporting purebred animals, things of that nature.
So everybody's just kind of like, everybody's bringing their expertise to kind of bring all this thing together and to make it work.
Absolutely. I don't know why they wanted me, but here I am.
There you go. Well, we're talking this morning with Rob Weiss, who's the Executive Director of Heartland Canines for Veterans. And we've been talking a little bit about the work of this particular organization as it continues to serve veterans by providing service animals and in some ways companions and friends for some of those veterans who continue to suffer because there's anxiety or other things. So we're going to be right back after this Mercy Minute. Stick with us, and we're going to be talking about some of the unique things that these service animals are also trained to do. So don't go away. We're going to be right back. This is Faith in Our Hometown.
You're watching Faith in Our Hometown on KSN TV, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.
So we're here this morning with Rob Weiss, who's the Executive Director of Heartland Canines for Veterans, here for another Sunday at Faith in Our Hometown. Now, Rob, the first time I saw one of your presentations, there was a specific, kind of like heart-grabbing demonstration that was done because of some of the special training that the dogs receive, to to be of real service to a veteran who's in crisis at a particular moment in time. And I'd like to, I know we got a short video that we want to play, and then I want to talk with you a little bit about that once we see the video. So let's go to, if we can get that video queued up, that would be great.
That may fall into a severe depression and attempt to take their own life by use of a weapon. Specially trained dogs like Athena can be taught to interrupt self-harm by demanding the veteran to reconnect to the here and now, by the dog being persistent in barking and demanding the reconnection. This technique can be very powerful and will save lives for those who suffer from PTSD. I've seen that a lot. I get a little misty even now seeing this movie.
Just kind of blown away, because I really had been not thinking about, you know, the amount of crisis or the moments of crisis that can be in the lives of some of these folks who return struggling with some of the vestiges of being at war. So to me, I mean, just talk a little bit about the video and about what you train the dogs to do in that regard.
Well, unfortunately, veteran suicide in general is something that nobody likes to talk about.
Right.
And for a very long period, you know, we always wonder if there's something that could be done, or if we could do something about it. And this technique, this intervention technique, is called SHEPAR. And basically, it is, the dog is trained to recognize morbid thoughts, self-harming behavior, and interrupt those thoughts or that self-harming behavior by immediately getting into the handler's face, like you saw in the video, jumping up on their chest, barking at them, licking them, pawing them with, you know, pawing the objects that they may have in their hands, anything that will help the veteran lose their focus on those so-called self-harming behaviors and refocus on the here and now, and see that, hey, there is somebody here that is trying to stop me from doing what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And if it gives a veteran or handler just that single moment of pause, the mission has been accomplished.
Yeah. We've done shows earlier, you know, a few weeks ago, about, you know, some of the things that people who are contemplating suicide go through. And one of the things we're discovering, and the folks that have not, you know, succeeded, was, you know, how long were you thinking about this, and what did it take in order to intervene? And sometimes it was just like they only thought about it for just a period of time, short period of time. And if something could have intervened during that short period of time, then, you know, we wouldn't have had the problem that we had, you know, where somebody chose a much more horrible ending to the, you know, to the episode. Anybody can go through a down period or a moment of crisis or even a contemplation of self-harming thoughts. But if something can get in there and interrupt that, usually, you know, we can you know, help then in a different way. If you can
interrupt the cycle in any way, shape, or form, then you have done everything that you can, just like we said, just to give them that single moment of pause.
Yeah.
I was actually discussing this last week on the radio, and many times the people that are in most need of service dogs, they are that withdrawn individual. They may not have a whole lot of friends, they may not have a whole lot of social interaction or a social life. And if we can get them in the training process and provide them with a service dog, if they are thinking about those, you know, those destructive thoughts, that self-harming behavior, a service dog has the potential to intervene where there is the possibility that they wouldn't have any friends around. That's their friend,
right.
That is going to give them that moment of pause.
Yeah. It does give new meaning to man's best friend. You know, when you said that earlier, I was thinking about the video and going, yeah, definitely.
It's pretty compelling.
It is. You know, the first time I saw it, I was like, whoa. I just had never, you know, and again, I think that's, unless you know somebody, or unless they've stopped to tell you their story, or what they've gone through since. And again, that's part of why we try to have these conversations, as a caring community here.
Right.
Is just to say, unless you've had somebody tell that story or unless you've had somebody share those things, we don't always understand what people who come back from, war areas, some of what they go through. And unfortunately, this is a little too common for folks who've experienced that kind of trauma on their lives.
It absolutely is. Unfortunately, it is something it's not generational by any stretch of the imagination. Post-traumatic stress has existed in forms since, the first armies faced off in a field. The people that walked away from that, or hobbled away from it, or limped away, they were forever changed people. And it has evolved over the generations. We called it different things. We used to call it shell shock. We called it battle fatigue, operational exhaustion. Now we call it post-traumatic stress syndrome. We call it many different things, but it's still the same condition. And one of the things that most people don't realize is that is something that, as a veteran, I've seen things that I don't like to talk about. I've been places that most people would not like to go. And I have brought back things of my own that I consider my own personal demons. You could call it post-traumatic stress if you like. You could call it anxiety. But they're not things that I would talk about with just anyone.
Right.
And it's a difficult subject to broach, no matter what environment you're in.
Well, I'm just grateful that you guys have, that Heartland Canines for Veterans has figured out some ways to make some interventions in the life of some of the people who suffer these things, because it's got to be making a difference in the lives of those, at least those 15 people that you've been able to place so far. So how do we place more? How do we do some of this stuff?
Well, we have an application process. And we have a website, we have a Facebook page. Obviously, I think we're going to give our contact information.
Well, let's do it now since we're talking about it. So if you know of somebody who might need the services of Heartland Canines for Veterans, the phone number is 417-793-2344. Again, 417-793-2344. And your web address?
Our web address is www.heartlandcaninesforveterans.com.
Okay,
and
so one more time.
heartlandcaninesforveterans.com.
All spelled out.
Canines is all spelled out.
Yep.
For veterans is all spelled out.
Okay.
No capitalization.
Okay. .com.
Yep. And then we also have a Facebook page that is also Heartland Canines for Veterans.
You probably use the spaces there, though.
I think so.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Okay. But good. So if anybody would be interested, and also not just if you're interested or know somebody that would need the services of, but let's also talk about what they might be able to do to help volunteer for the organization.
Well, because we are a nonprofit organization, we look for volunteers in every facet. We've got a couple of events coming up that we can always use help. We can always use just participation. Those are one of the most important things for the events that we put on. And as a nonprofit organization, the majority of our working capital is derived through our sponsorships, donations, things of that nature. The fundraisers that we organize and run, all of that basically is geared towards our single goal, which is providing that dog to the veteran. And the overall cost of providing a service dog, when you talk about procurement, general care, veterinary care, equipment and training, we're talking about $11,000, $12,000 per dog. Now, because we provide this service at no cost to the veteran, we eat all the cost of procuring, caring for, training, and equipping these dogs before we hand them over to a veteran that's gone through the training cycle with them. And that money's got to come from somewhere.
Sure. So donations, So if anybody wants to donate, you got those same numbers. You
Absolutely.
You can do some of those things.
Yep.
And again, if you got any time. So what events you got coming up that folks could even see some of the dogs? I think your president video is strong. I think it's very good to also see the dogs who are being trained sometimes and working.
We do have
I'm
a couple.
amazed. It's great. Yeah.
We've got a couple of dogs that are in the training cycle, and our next event will be on the 7th. It'll be this Saturday. It's going to be a charity breakfast at the Joplin Elks Lodge that is on 1802 West 26th Street.
Wonderful.
From 8 to 10 in the morning. It's going to
So
be
that's going to be on
April the 7th.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're recording a little early here.
We
No,
are.
yeah.
I'm
Sorry. Don't worry about it. It's all good.
Okay.
So, you're going to miss that breakfast by the time you see this
Okay.
show, but that's
Let's see,
okay.
April 29th.
But anything after the 29th, yeah.
May 12th, we will be having a military appreciation night at Springfield Raceway in Springfield.
Okay.
The current active duty veterans will get in free. We will have an informational booth there. We'll probably have a couple of dogs on site. And then some of the Heartland team will be there to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Okay. Good. Well, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to be right back after this Mercy Minute and to wrap up, and we'll be right back.
The SANE program, or Sexual Assault Nurse Examiner program, is a program established to provide a coordinated, specialized care to patients or women or men who've been the victim of sexual assault.
The SANE program is really designed to be a collaborative community response to sexual assault.
It's really important to make sure that it's not just the report or the forensic, but they get all of the testing that might be needed for their health.
It's also important to know that you don't need to know if you want to press charges or not. We don't get law enforcement involved unless you request it.
I just want to express to the victim that it is never your fault. You always have the right to say no, and that it's your body. So if you say yes one time, it doesn't mean every time.
I think it's important that sexual assault victims remember they've been victims of a crime, and crime victims do not pay for those services.
Well, thank you for joining us for another Sunday morning of faith in our hometown. Again, how do we care for all of our brothers and sisters here in our area? And some of those that sometimes need a little bit of extra TLC might be those who come home with a little bit of damage from the service that they've done for all the rest of us in terms of trying to serve our country. And so one of the ways that we can do that, one of the ways that the Heartland Canines for Veterans have figured out how to do that, is to provide service animals to help our brothers and sisters who might be might sometimes get isolated and alone to get out into the community by providing those service animals. Again, events coming up in Springfield here in the middle of May. More information, just contact Heartland Canines for Veterans. But it is always good to see how people are taking care of each other. It is one of the things that makes us different, and I hope that we will continue to care for each other, especially sometimes those members of our community that need some of that extra TLC. Join us next week for Faith in Our Hometown.
Thanks for watching. Faith in Our Hometown can be seen Sunday mornings at 6:30 and 9 a.m. on KSN. Brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.